Okay, awesome. So I believe we're live now. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tea with Ann Marie. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Friday. Thank God it's Friday, TGIF. I don't know if you guys have had a week like I have had. But anyways, it's not about me. I am super excited to introduce and welcome my good friend and special guest, Mayor Wayne Messam, the City of Miramar.
How are you? How is everybody today?
Wonderful, wonderful. How are you, Mayor?
All is well given the circumstances, but we give thanks and we continue to press forward.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. And, for those who don't know, this is my big brother, y'all. Like, love him to pieces. Him and Angela, one of the best couples in South Florida.
Yes, thank you so much.
And Wayne and I, we have a similar history where we come from a family of immigrants who came here, worked really hard. And I'll let Wayne share his story. Um, and, we grew up in the Glades, which we love, our community back in the Glades. Wayne more so South Bay, right?
Yep, yep.
And me in Pahokee. So tell us a little bit about your background, Wayne.
Well, I'll try to give an abbreviated version. My parents came to this country many decades ago. They both have passed on, but my father was a contract sugarcane cutter. He worked for many years in the hot, sweltering sugarcane fields of the Glades, where he eventually migrated to this country and made his home in South Bay, where I grew up. Grew up in South Bay, attended Rosenwald Elementary School in South Bay, Lakeshore Middle in Belglade, and proud class of 1992 graduate of Glade Central High School, and went on to Florida State University on academic and football scholarship, where I played football and also ran track. So that's kind of the snippet of my background. But yeah, I'm from the muck, proud, born and raised, and I'm always excited to connect with you and our fellow muck steppers from the Glades that continue to do wonderful things out in our various communities.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those who don't know, so how we share a story, my grandfather actually migrated from Jamaica to the Glades as a part of the sugarcane industry, and then brought the rest of our family here. So I actually was born in Jamaica, but grew up in Pahokee since I was 3 years old. So proud graduate of Pahokee Middle Senior High School, class of 1998. So let's get to it. So Mayor Messam, how has things been for you in your city during this crazy pandemic?
Well, the city of Miramar, we've been very aggressive since the onset. We began making preparations actually back in February before it really hit, I guess, nationwide. We put in provisions to protect our employees as well as our city operations, and to prepare our public in general for what we now have experienced as our new norm. We were one of the first cities to put a shelter in place order as well as a facial covering order to protect our residents and the public as well. So we've been adjusting. Like most municipalities, we have endured the fiscal impacts of COVID-19. We've also continued to work with our community for those who are most impacted. We have given out tens of thousands of meals on a weekly basis in partnership with Feeding South Florida every Thursday, and we'll continue to do so as long as the resources are available. We've put many programs in place for our residents, for rental assistance, utility payment assistance, as well as for our businesses. So Miramar, we've always been progressive in terms of on the economic side. Many of your viewers may not know Miramar has more Fortune 500 companies than any city in the Tri-County area.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that includes West Palm Beach, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, but we also pride ourselves in nurturing and growing medium and small sized businesses. So we have a healthy economy here. Development continues to boom. We're nearing build out for our city. but we continue to reinvent ourselves so that we can continue to be a market leader, not just for our corporate residents, but for our residential constituents as well.
No, that's really good. Now, being that you were one of the first cities to do a shelter in place, require face covering, what type, did you get any type of pushback or hate mail, or considering everything that's going on, like what was the climate when you guys put that in place?
Well, when we put it in place, there were many questions because folks were not quite sure about the coronavirus and its impacts. But when you're dealing with a pandemic, the key is to get out in front of the virus. What the main issue is to flatten the curve. I know that's a common term that folks may not necessarily pay attention to, but it's basically allowing our healthcare system to be able to treat those who need treatment, especially those who need to go into intensive care. The coronavirus has caught basically the world off guard. And what we have to do is give the medical community time to catch up by providing medications, vaccines, things to treat morbid conditions, as well as to reduce and eliminate deaths as a result. But when you're telling folks that they can't go home or their business has to close, it's a shocker. Many folks they endured many economic challenges during that process, but we knew that it was required and necessary to protect the public health.
Absolutely. So, man, you were one of the first. Now we're topping literally 10,000 plus cases a day. I think I was listening to the news where in 15 days, we have as a country seen 1 million cases in 15 days. Yeah. And Florida being one of those epicenters. And I think I read in Bloomberg this morning that one of the writers who had been praising Ron DeSantis is finally saying he got it wrong as governor of Florida. What are your thoughts? I mean, where do we go from here? Like, I mean, I don't know if businesses can afford another shutdown, especially with no resources from the federal government, no additional resources. What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, we're in a quagmire right now with the gridlock in Washington, where the House has their act together in terms of putting forward a bill that will comprehensively address the public safety aspect of the coronavirus impacts, as well as the economic stimulus and support that is needed. It goes hand in hand. But what is happening is that you have a very rigid Senate majority in the leadership of McConnell that refuses to recognize the fact that there needs to be additional funding. You can't tell people to stay home. You can't tell businesses to close, and you can't shut down our economy without having a concerted effort to synchronize resources to support the public, to support these businesses that have to shut down just because of the nature of their operations. It just facilitates the spread of COVID-19. So when we're saying stay home and wear a facial covering, social distancing, restaurants to certain capacity, and you're basically blunting economic production and output, but yet you're not having the support from the federal government and the state government, well, mainly the federal government, because the federal government is the issuer of the resources, the currency that we need. And it's just the states and county governments are basically conduits to get it to the local level. So until they get their acts together, and we definitely need leadership from Tallahassee. I've been very vocal in terms of pushing Governor DeSantis to issue a mandatory facial covering order, as well as, he has his best buddy, Trump in Washington. He needs to add pressure to him. They're seeing now that when you're having these cases that are coming out, these are people's lives. It's their livelihoods, and it's our mothers, our aunts, our grandparents, our brothers, our sisters, and even young people are really being impacted by this coronavirus. And politics has, as usual, rear its head up and really is not serving the public well at all.
Absolutely. So the gridlock in Washington, which is amazing to me, because now we're about, a week and a half away from them going on recess until after Labor Day. And we still don't have a bill passed with additional resources. And the bill that's on the table does not have any additional funding for states and local governments. And we know that you guys your budgets are being drained. So, what is your take on the bill not having any additional funding sources for state and local government? And then, if it does not pass within the next week, we're now waiting a whole nother month. We just saw 15 million new cases in 15 days, which is a half a month.
Yeah. It's a sad situation. Our healthcare systems are to the brink. I know here in South Florida, and specifically Broward County, the South County Health District, which is known as Memorial Healthcare System, their IC units are to capacity. And those available beds are regular rooms now are being converted to IC units to try to respond to the cases. But the travesty of all of this is that when you can't have Washington work for the people, it's devastating. As a board member of the National League of Cities, local governments, the National League of Cities, NACO, which is our sister organization for counties, are asking for $500 billion for local municipalities. That is what is needed. The City of Miramar and other municipalities, we are already expecting a 30% reduction in our shared revenue with the state. We know that our general fund is going to be impacted. There are some very tough decisions that we are planning for right now. Miramar is one of the first cities in the country to state this publicly, that the COVID-19 has a fiscal issue. The contrary to what you're hearing out of the Senate, that tries to put the burden on local governments. By state statutes, local governments have to pass a balanced budget. We're not squandering dollars. We are not. We don't have the liberty or the flexibility to meet our demands when property taxes only for the city of Miramar only equates to about 45% of our general fund. The balance of our general fund is fees that we earn for providing governmental services. But our city hall is closed. We have very limited services. So we're not able to generate the revenue that we need to support our current operations. And you have to realize that a city, especially as active as Miramar, we are processing permits, doing inspections, and we are an economic hub for South Florida. And when we are impacted in the way that we are, Senate really has it wrong. And they really need to listen to local officials. We are on the ground. We see it. When we can't provide services for our residents, then it just hurts our economy. So I think the corporate community is beginning to feel those impacts. They see that their employees cannot come to work. They don't have childcare. They're unable to operate as they once did pre-COVID-19, and we're all in this together. So we just have to put politics aside and we have to work together. I had a gripe with the governor initially when we were asking for a specific testing site in Miramar in our historic section of town, just before the national data came out to show the disproportionate impacts of COVID-19 on people of color. We knew that our residents needed to have easy access to being tested. The reason why you're seeing all these numbers right now is because we're beginning to test more people. In fact, there are many more people that are impacted and infected with this virus who are asymptomatic, or they may be sick, don't have access to health care, and the community spread is rampant. So we're really pushing very hard, but no matter how aggressive the city of Miramar is, if Pembroke Pines isn't consistent, if Miami Gardens isn't consistent with our standards that we have, it's all for naught because it's a regional issue. As you know, the entire Southeast Florida, from West Palm Beach down to Monroe County, is one contiguous region. You go from one city to the next without knowing. So if we shut down in Miramar, folks would just go to Hollywood. They'll just go to Pembroke Pines. They'll just go to Miami or West Palm Beach to do the things, to live life. So we have to do this. We have to be coordinated. We have to be organized, and we need leadership from the top. And that's going right to Tallahassee, the governor's office.
And that hasn't happened. We have not had a comprehensive approach. This has been the worst piecemealed approach to any problem I have ever seen in my entire life. And it has not been effective. And I think that the lack of leadership to say, I'm not, an elected official yet, but even when I look at, let's just say marketing, if we're doing marketing for someone and we've done it for 3 months one way and there hasn't been an impact, it hasn't been effective, then it's time for us to look at the situation, tweak it, and come up with another approach, right? So same thing with our government. If since March, we've been doing a piecemeal approach and putting the responsibility, because our leadership at the top doesn't want to take responsibility themselves, putting the responsibilities on local government to deal with all of this, instead of just having, this is what our state is doing. Instead of saying, oh yeah, well, this area is not impacted. Well, at some point they will be. And we're seeing it now, where at some point it's not just South Florida anymore. It's now North Florida and other parts of Florida.
Well, what I see in part is that you have a governor who is apparently beholden to the narrative that the president is pushing forward. And to change courses is to say that we've been wrong since the onset of this virus. And they're unwilling to do that. They're unwilling to shoulder the blame for any economic downturn, which we're experiencing because of stating that we're going to shut down or we're going to make certain mandates upon the entire state. And that's really what it boils down to. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't live in this fantasy world to say that things are all under control when we know that it's not. When our schools can't open safely, we have a problem. When our mom and pop businesses are basically going out of business, we have a problem. When we don't have enough testing kits and folks have to wait now 10, 12, 14 days just to get their test results, we have a serious problem. So I really take issue on these daily press conferences to paint this rosy picture about what you're doing, when you see what you're doing still is resulting into record-breaking positive cases. Positivity ratios are off the chain, and it's just continuing to get worse. And lack of action only exacerbates the current problem that we have. So we really need to get our act together, because what stands in the balance are lives that will continue to be lost, healthcare systems that will continue to be pushed to the brink, and resources that aren't getting to the folks that need it the most.
Yeah, and I guess for me, when you look at best practices, again, in industry, and you would think, because our president comes from business, right? In business, Wayne, what do? You're a business owner. We look at industry best practices. We look at best management practices. And there are other countries, right? So it's not like United States is dealing with this alone. There are other countries who have been able to reduce their cases, kind of steady their economy, respond when they see a spike. Why are we looking at them as best practices?
Well, the thing is the opportunity and the window of opportunity that we had early on to recognize what was going on, to listen to our healthcare providers, our epidemiologists and CDC and so many experts. We missed that opportunity to get ahead of the virus. It's already known that there were many Americans that were already positive with COVID-19 and did not know it. In fact, when the Super Bowl was here in early February, it's a great chance that it was a pool of infectious activity going on, and folks just did not know what was going on. And but the thing is when you have drastic measures that we are right now, I would even challenge the thought processes in terms of this is unprecedented. So you really can't even look at best practices. This is because when it's unprecedented, you have to take aggressive action to correct or to forecast, to get ahead of the information that you do know, to put it to practice so that we can stop. It's just that, again, there was a concerted decision made to make a decision between the economy and public safety. And because of the need to have economic input or output to move forward, that is what the leadership has decided to do. We're going to reopen. We're not going to pay attention to the CDC gating criteria to say when you should reopen. We reopened too soon. We reopened, we didn't listen to or followed our own guidelines. We didn't even follow our own guidelines, and that's where we are right now today.
Well, that's pretty typical of Washington. We don't follow our intelligence. We don't, to protect our country. We don't follow our healthcare and science experts to help us mitigate what now is an out of control situation. I mean, but he did say that he listens to himself. He is his own advisor.
Well, we see what we've gotten with that, So, but the thing, though, is that what I've been sharing with our community and those individuals that I come into contact with is we have to take our lives into our own hands. We cannot depend upon those individuals who are unwilling to work on our behalf. And we must do the simple things like keeping our hands clean, keeping social distancing, wearing a facial covering, a mask when you're out in public and when you can't maintain social distancing. It is so important. And a lot of the spread is happening from birthday parties, graduation parties, family get-togethers. We don't see our family members who don't live in our house as a threat. They're not showing any signs or symptoms of being infected. And we're having these backyard barbecues. And it's little things like that where 1-2 people are infected and asymptomatic, and they impact their entire extended family and guests that are at an event. So we have to take ownership of our own activities. We have to make sure that only go out when you have to. Just do the essential things you need to do. I know some of us have to go out to work. When you're out to work, make sure that you're protected. Pressure your local government to provide resources like masks and gloves for those who cannot acquire them themselves, because we just have to do this because we're all in this together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you're absolutely right. And I keep saying to folks, we got to save ourselves because it's just what it is. And in addition to what you said about social distancing, wearing a mask, even I went to visit my mom yesterday. She had on her mask. I had on my mask. And although because my thing is, okay, you're home, you're not going anywhere. But every now and then I'm going out to the grocery store. I'm going, to meet with people very little because I get anxiety going out now. It's just like, I won't even breathe the air. But even going to see her, I wear my mask. She wears her mask. We social distance because I'm like, listen, the last thing I want to be responsible for is knowing that I've, brought something to my mom. But I think in addition to that, we need to also, and what's not being talked about is as much is our health, taking our own health into our own hands. So, doing what we need to do to boost our immune system, exercising, losing weight. I'm proud to say I've since this thing started, I've lost about 15 pounds, which I'm super excited about. But really getting our own health in order, because not only if you happen to, for whatever reason, come in contact with the virus, you want to be able to make sure that your body can fight it off. And we don't know the long-term impacts that it will have on each individual. I was just reading a young lady's post this morning who she's very involved in the Democratic Party. And I didn't even know she had come in contact with the virus back in March. And now she is in the hospital dealing with lung and heart issues as a residual of the virus. I have another friend who didn't have diabetes or nothing, but he's now dealing with neurological issues with his legs that he didn't have before after recovering from the virus. So we just don't know what this thing would do to our bodies. So we have to keep our bodies as much as possible. And, we have to strengthen them as much as possible because we don't know what the impact could be if we somehow come in contact with the virus.
Oh, for sure. Our health is our number one asset, because without a healthy body, healthy mind, what are we? And you're so right. Taking care of the things that we need to do in terms of our physical activity, our diet, it is so important. You have to give yourself a fighting chance if you are to succumb to this virus. And doing the things that, especially in our community where we don't always make the best choices as it relates to being active, in terms of we want our food a certain kind of way. It has to taste a certain kind of way, and we don't explore enough options, healthy options, to do the things. You don't have to deprive yourself to be able to eat well and eat tasty foods. And that first day you went out for a run and you didn't feel too well, okay, go back out there the next day and build yourself up. You'll recover quicker.
Yeah.
So but those are the things that we have to do to stay healthy, because as people of color, we're predisposed to morbid conditions in our community. Some may say it may be hereditary, but a lot of it is culture and lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because we tend to have certain phobias in our community about the healthcare systems, and justifiably so. It deprives us to access, because we may not necessarily have access to healthcare or healthcare insurance. We don't get the right advice and the right resources to live a life of wellness. There's so many contributing factors that puts us in a position to have a certain diet that lends to hypertension, cardiovascular disease, a metabolic disease like diabetes. And then we have all of these underlying issues. That is why Black folks are dying more from this disease, or being hospitalized more. We are being impacted more because of our current health system. And I don't want to discount the fact that there is a bit of racism in this as well, because there's enough data to show that you have well-off brothers and sisters who have access to healthcare. They're just as financially stable as their white counterparts. And when you look at the way they are treated by the healthcare industry, we get the best option. We get the least favorable options when we have access to those options. We're not treated the same way for whatever reason. So it really doesn't even matter your socioeconomic status. We just are behind the eight ball when it comes to our healthcare. So that's why it's so critical that we take care of ourselves.
No, I agree. And I know you have a pretty stringent routine. I see some of it on WhatsApp, but I don't know if you want to kind of share with people some of the tips from maybe what you do on a daily basis to stay in shape and stay healthy. But I do see some of it. But for those who don't see it, like, maybe tell us some of what you do.
Well, I'm very active. For those people that do know me and familiar with my life, because of my athletic background, because I played football at Florida State, brief stint in the NFL, running track. I've just always had a healthy lifestyle. But I realized though that my vessel, my body, is my number one asset, and it's a commitment. Anything that you do, you have to, I have to take care of Wayne first before I can take care of anybody else. So I have a very rigid, I won't say rigid, I've just disciplined myself. I get up very early. I wake up 4:00 in the morning, do my meditation. I run. I've become now a runner now. I've taken on running. I love to run. Like this morning, I ran 7 miles this morning. I'll probably run some more tomorrow, but that's just my choice. So whatever your fitness thing, you may be yoga for you, or taking walks, or cycling, or swimming, or just doing, we got our phones now. I mean, there's so many apps that are out there right now. You can exercise right in your front porch, right in your backyard, right in your living room. There's no more excuses in terms
None whatsoever.
But I mean, if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, it's my name at Wayne Messam. On Twitter and Instagram, and you can just search me on Facebook. Most of my posts are public on Facebook, and I like to share what I'm doing just so that folks can say that, hey, look, if Wayne is out there doing it, Wayne is busy. If he's out there doing it, he's making the time. It's not finding the time; you got to make the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone says, if I could just find the time to work out. No, you have to make the time, because a lot of times we're just that the 2 hours you're laying up in the bed in the morning. You know how much you can get done in 2 hours?
Scrolling the social media pages.
But it's really about finding out what works for you. You don't have to be like me and be crazy running all these miles, but find out what works for you, and just educate yourself. There's so many resources that are out there that you can find something that works for you so that you can be the best you that you can be.
Absolutely. And I'll just add to that, because this has been a learning experience for me with as far as like just researching different herbs and supplements and looking at my nutrition, and reading labels. Guys, you got to read the labels. Like there's so many things that I used to eat a lot of that I didn't realize had so much sodium, for example, or so much sugar content. And when you start really reading the labels and looking at, trying to balance how much sodium you have per day so that you don't get hypertension or how much sugar you have per day so you don't become diabetic, it's mind-boggling. Like you now just start not limiting, but you really say, okay, well, instead of me having a whole bag of chips, let me just have like a little handful, because if I have this whole bag, I've had about 1,500 milligrams of sodium in one bag of chips, right?
Yeah,
So reading the labels, just for me, that's like now my thing, like, okay, how much of this am I going to have? Or, I'm not cooking with this. So cooking, Google is, not Google, but Google and YouTube is great for coming up with new recipes and cooking. But yeah, so also reading your labels, watching what you eat, I know some folks don't like to cut back on the meat, cutting back on some of the heavy meats. And I know we like our garlic crabs with all the Old Bay and salt and butter. And guys, I see the pictures and I'm like, okay, that look kind of good, but in my head, that's like hypertension waiting to happen.
Yeah, and the thing is once you educate yourself and you see the negative impacts on the things that we love to do, you just start changing your decisions. Your decision making changes when you know that you're eating something that is literally killing you.
Yeah.
You begin to look at it differently. So, and one thing that I've done, especially since COVID-19, is that I've been cooking more. And a lot of folks like to say that, well, it's expensive to eat healthy. Well, it depends. You can go out and go to Panera Bread or some of these places and easily spend $12, $15 just for lunch. You know how much produce you can buy for $15? You know how much squash you can buy? You know how much okra you can buy? You know how much tomatoes you can buy, cabbage you can buy? There's so many things that you can buy for the same amount of money. And these are meals for the week. So what you're spending for one lunch, you can buy the raw material, cook it at home, put your own flair to it, much more tasty, and look, hey, we're home. So don't say you don't have the time because you're right in the house, right?
Exactly. No, I've definitely been doing a lot more, and it's been better for me. I'll tell you that I feel better, and my pockets feel better, because I don't know about everybody else, but because I was always on the go to meetings here, there, and everywhere, I'd grab whatever I could eat. And so I was spending, if you're talking about at least, let's just say 2 meals a day at $15, you're talking about $30 a day. In 10 days, you spent $300 times 3. You're talking about $900 a month easily eating out, versus you probably spend $400 on food for the month, cooking. So it is a big cost savings. And I think for those who, and not to say we don't want to support our businesses, because, if you can, I do try to at least a couple times a month go support a local business. and buy something where I eat out. But for the most part, I'm saving so much money. And in these times where we don't know what's happening with our economy for the long run, it's a great time to be saving your money.
We don't know where this future is going to go, but the entrepreneurial side of me tells me that in every situation there's an opportunity.
Let's talk about
And
that.
we have a choice, we have a choice when things happen in our lives, in our community. We can sit back and say, oh, woe me, or we can look to see, well, how are things going to change? Our entire society will forever be impacted because of COVID-19. So what does that mean? How do I take advantage of this? What business opportunities are there? What things we no longer can do that now there is a gap or there's a market need because it's no longer available? Well, how can we now meet that need in a new way based on how we must live today? And that's where the creative minds come out. And when you can meet the needs of the marketplace with innovation, you can be successful. A lot of times, folks like to say, well, that sounds good, but really, everything really literally starts with an idea. So build your village, get your strong support in every area of your life, whether it's your personal life, your health life, your business life, your spiritual life, your family life. You just really need to surround yourself with people who have the same mindset, and it may require you to shed some weight. Shed some. When I say weight, those individuals who are not necessarily on the same wavelength. It's nothing against them, but when you have to take charge of yourself, because when you're together, then now you can be the blessing to others.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%. This is a great time for people to, I say, create. It's interesting when I talk to someone and say, "Oh, I'm so bored," and I'm like, "How are you bored? You can be reading, you can be writing, you can be creating, you can be seeking out opportunities, create that next venture." Or if you never had a venture before, this is a great time to create one. Felicia Hatcher did a presentation a couple of weeks ago that was like 65 plus side hustles you can start this weekend in response to COVID-19. And I thought it was brilliant. And the things that she put up there was just like, they're simple and doable, And so I think that people do have to kind of get out of the negative space, turn off your TV a little bit. Yeah, you want to keep up with some of the news, but you ain't got to watch it all day, every day. Turn it off. Take some time to go within yourself and think of how you can make yourself holistically better during this time. So I agree with you 100%. Now I want to get into elections.
Okay.
We have 2 key elections coming up, August 18th, and then we have November elections. Oh man. Do you think it's too quiet, or do you think are people making noise, or what are you hearing? What are you hearing?
Oh, it depends. It depends. I know in South Florida, a lot of the local elections are very active. I know, particularly in Broward County, because the primary elections that are taking place in August, so many races are determined in August because throughout, I know Broward County and some areas of Palm Beach County and even Miami-Dade County, because of the large number of registered Democrats, it just, by the time it gets to November, whoever's that Democratic nominee for that office, for that seat to represent the Democrats, the numbers just always are overwhelmingly in the favor of the Democrat. So a lot of these local state house, Senate seats, county seats are up for grabs, but they're determined in August. But we also have important other elections, like the judicial seats in Broward County, the state attorney and public defender and sheriff's race. There's some very competitive races going on right now. But in terms of nationally, that's a wild card in terms of where this presidential race is going to go, especially for Florida. I think as Florida goes, will go perhaps the nation. It's just don't believe these polls you're hearing out there. You're hearing that Biden is 13 points ahead of Trump, and although they said that when Hillary was running,
Yeah.
so we just have to do. I don't know where everybody's leaning, but we just have to do what we have to do to get the vote out. Like anything else, we have to take ownership of that influence, not just with our vote, but just the people who we influence. We sit back and say, well, why aren't they doing this? Or why aren't they? We have to be more actively involved. We have to ask the tough questions. I I won't say I don't endorse candidates. I have endorsed candidates in the past, but I'm not one of those elected officials where you'll see my name on every candidate's material as an endorser. Because when individuals seek my endorsement, I don't just say yes or no. I really sit down and challenge them. First, why they're running. What they're going to do different, what they're going to bring to the people. We can't I find ourselves just giving away our support so cheaply and so easily, just because someone else is supporting them, but no one really examines these candidates the way they need to be examined. There's a real big push in terms of, with this whole Black Lives Matter and all of this racial disparity and this institutional racism. And this is the time to be asking folks where they stand on it, even if they're Black, because because they look like you and I, they don't necessarily mean that they have the solutions that will benefit our community, and we really have to, examine our candidates. And when you take a city like Miramar, which is Broward County's largest Black populated city, but by no stretch of imagination that you would necessarily see Miramar as a Black city because we're so diverse.
Right.
A third of our city is Latino and Latina, and you can't serve a diverse community with just one mindset. But that doesn't mean that we can't remove institutional barriers that have been in place for decades that stifle opportunity. And we try to leverage that. I'll be rolling out some Black agenda items shortly in terms of what it means in the city of Miramar. And I challenge my colleagues across the country to do the same, whether it's whether it's your police department, whether it's your procurement process, whether it's your hiring practices. There's just so many ways where you can ensure that there's no prejudice and any bias in your practices and in your systems. And that's what we have to ask these candidates, because many of these candidates, they run for office, they don't necessarily have the knowledge of the position. They see it as a popularity contest, and once I get in there, I'll see what I'll do. But we really have to examine our candidates.
I agree. And someone posted, I won't call her out, but someone posted one of a group chat that I'm a part of. She said, she didn't want to sound ignorant, but she wanted to know, how does she find out about basically the job description of these different elected offices? And I think there's just so many people from a civic standpoint. And I've just had the fortunate opportunity to work in government to help with candidates as well as, do business with government. So I have a different understanding than most, regular people. So how can we create, and I don't know if it's something that exists. I know you can Google stuff, of course, but how can we create for our communities a civic lesson, so to speak, on these different mayor? What does it mean to be a mayor? What is your responsibility, right? So they can better be educated on what to expect from their candidates, number one, because if I hire you to be a manager of whatever, and you have a job description, so I thought it was a valid question, but how do we as a community use our platforms to kind of create this civic education for those who just really don't know?
Well, for those of us who do know, we have to mentor others. as well as we have to, one avenue for sure is to demand our education system to begin to make civics mandatory instead of an elective, because I think that's what's missing. I know growing up, we took civic courses, we took government courses, and at least we knew what local government was. We knew how our governmental entities were interrelated, but that is a lost commodity right now. So it really starts with our education system to at least to give that baseline so that people can go into society and understand how our government process works. Also, in terms of resources, like regardless of the governmental entity or governmental body, there are governing documents, governing laws that creates each position. And it's not really complicated, most local governments, whether it's a mayor, whether the city has a strong mayor or a city commission or city council, city manager form of government, there's a charter that defines what those roles and what those responsibilities are. You can search any local government's charter. You can just go to municode.com and put in the municipality and read the charter. And these positions aren't really complicated. Most local governments, their responsibility is to pass ordinances and resolutions, pass a budget. They'll have perhaps specific duties in terms of if the council hires the city manager or if the mayor nominates or appoints with the council or commission approval. So every city may vary, but just start with that local government's charter. And the positions, just read what the responsibilities are. And it's not really complicated. It's just a matter of just reading.
Listen, I agree. And I think sometimes people don't go the extra mile, or they say, well, I don't know where to go look for the information. So I'm glad you put that out there on how and where to go look for information. I try to tell teenagers that we mentor, I say, you spend a lot of time on your phone looking at Instagram and TikTok and, all these other apps of mindlessness sometimes. But, are you using that same device to go and research something that you can do to improve yourself or to improve your community? And I challenge our adults to, do the same. Take the time to whatever city you live in. Like you said, look up your city's charter. Start reading through those documents. Better understand what it is that your city government is responsible for. Because a lot of times, and it's so interesting because I get in conversations with people. I remember having some employees a while back who had never voted. Wow. Didn't register to vote, had never voted, didn't understand the importance of voting. And so when I started to kind of explain from a city, county, state, federal level, what the responsibilities were and how it impacted them on a daily basis, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And then once they started seeing the work that we do as an agency in different communities where we're looking at housing, we're looking at homelessness, we're looking at education, healthcare, and they're seeing these different disparities and they're seeing how government plays a role in all of this. Then it was like, aha, I get it now. Okay, now I understand why I need to vote. Now I understand why I need to be a part of this process, because now I understand how it directly impacts me, my family, and my neighborhood and my community. So I think it's so much education that still has to happen there for people to really.
There's a lot. And I think when the community understands that they have just as much right to public resources as any other community or any other group or any other advocacy organization, they'll feel more empowered because it's all of our tax dollars. And the last time I checked, all of us are paying taxes. So those dollars are good. And it's at the local level, it's at the county level, it's at the state level, and it's at the federal level. All these private entities, they have lobbyists for reasons. While we're fighting over small little issues, you have folks in the halls of Congress, whether it's the House of Representatives or the Senate, they're trying to get bills passed. In fact, they are writing the bills that these senators and House representatives are putting forward and sponsoring, that it's not to give them a contract, it's to set the lay of the land for their industry. Because if this bill passes, then that means that we'll have 80% of the market. That's how these folks are thinking. And as a community, we have to think the same way. We are fighting and screaming for such a little morsel of the pie when we can be the whole crust, when we can be the filling, or we can be the actual pan, but we want a little crumble that we're fighting over and saying that what they didn't give us. I'm a big proponent of things like, advocating for fair wages, $15 an hour, but $15 an hour in South Florida, how much is that really going to get you?
Not much.
What resources are we instilling in our community, in our youth, in our people to become producers, to be entrepreneurs? Because that's one of the reasons why we're in business, why we have a business. We're in an industry that's dominated by white males. But if you look at my staff, 95% of our employees are Black. Mm-hmm. Because we know that Black construction management professionals are the first to be fired when a project is over, or the last to be hired when the opportunities are there. And we know that Black professionals are just as good as any other professional. Our ice is just as cold. Everyone else is ice. And we have to be cognizant of that. And when we are starting businesses, we're hiring people from our community when others pass us over, and that's where it starts. So it's in concert, being politically engaged and making sure that those who are in charge of distribution of resources are representing our issues. And on the private side, that we're empowering ourselves by being the innovators, the producers of industry, so that we can have the economic reward that other communities have enjoyed for decades and generations and centuries in this country.
No, I absolutely agree. And just like you, our firm, 95% of our employees are Black, because we find that in communications, recent grads have a hard time getting on with other agencies. They're just looked over. When you look at my competitors, in this market particularly, and you go look at their team members, we ain't there.
Yes.
We're not there. So I make it a pride, I'm prideful about hiring communication professionals that are Black. And then my vendors, my subcontractors, making sure they have an opportunity. So you're absolutely right. We have the power to fill the gap. We have the power to hire, create more wealth in our community. We have a few more minutes. You got any announcements? What's coming up? What's going on?
Well, so much is going on. Well, first, I would just like to thank you for inviting me on to your program, and for those viewers that would like to stay connected with me, you can follow me on social media. I'm on all the platforms at Wayne Messam on Instagram and Twitter, and you can just search Mayor Wayne M. Messam on Facebook to follow everything that we're doing here in the city of Miramar. And then on the professional side, we're always looking for opportunities. We're working throughout the state of Florida, primarily in South Florida. But if there are any construction management superintendents, project managers, we're hiring. messamconstruction.com. Just let us know that you're available. We're always looking for good, energetic, vibrant hustlers who want to do a great job and thrive in your craft, because we've been very blessed as a company, and we're unashamedly advocating for resources for minority, not just professionals, but for companies. We help other companies that don't even know we're helping them, and that's what we have to do as a people. Because some of us, when you have access to information, we have access to resources that the masses may not necessarily know about. We have to make sure how we're going to pay it forward. It's not really just about us. It's about our community, so that we can ensure that others can have the same opportunity to achieve the American dream. And that's what we're about. We're about uplifting individuals. So it's been a great conversation. Glad you're doing so well. Proud of you, and keep the grind up. We will all get through this COVID-19 situation. There's always opportunity in every challenge. So I challenge everybody to seek out those opportunities.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate you and Angela for just always being so supportive. If I'm having something in Palm Beach, y'all like, I'm there, I'm coming, whatever. If I just need some advice, or if you guys just check on me. So I so appreciate you and Angela for being a friend and my big brother, and doing what you do in the community, being an amazing mayor for Miramar, and really making Miramar a beacon of South Florida, especially for Black folks in South Florida. So thank you for all that you do. A couple of announcements. So we have the National Black Economic Conference coming up August 21st through 22nd. Our conference this year will be a virtual conference. You can learn more at nationalblackeconomicconference.com. We have 14 seminars, 2 keynotes. The theme is the road to generational wealth. We're celebrating National Black Business Month, which kicks off on August 1st. So we'll be highlighting Black-owned businesses, 31 days, 31 ways to support and patron Black businesses. We want everyone to be a part of that. For the conference, we do still have a few opportunities for call for speakers. We'll be announcing our lineup. I'm so excited. I'm like, first scene. But we'll be looking at different industries. What are the emerging industries? What's hot in innovation and technology? The cannabis industry, $10 billion plus industry. Where are we in that industry? We'll be looking at social media and how people have utilized social media to build wealth. Stocks, bonds, real estate, how to buy the block. So we have a lot to cover. Media and its role in the Black economy. So a lot to cover. You guys do not want to miss it. It's only $59 for one day, or $99 for the entire weekend. And for the lineup of national and local thought leaders that we have, you do not want to miss this. You're going to leave with a blueprint to create wealth for you and your family. So that's August 1st through 22nd. It'll all be virtual. We will have a virtual Black by Black Expo. So if there's anyone out there who wants to be a virtual vendor, we'll be pushing that. And then this year, we're also introducing the Written Black Experience, which is to promote Black authors from around the globe. So we'll be having author meet and greets and a virtual bookstore for you to support those Black authors. So we're super excited about nationalblackeconomicconference.com. Check it out. Go ahead and register. It's super exciting. And let me see, do I have anything? Oh, and one more announcement. Cannabisiac, for those of you who know, I recently launched a new venture called Cannabisiac. We are a cannabis incubator, accelerator, co-working community. COVID-19, the silver lining, has allowed us to be virtual and to expand beyond the borders of South Florida, so globally. We had our first Know Before You Grow seminar last week with none other than Cheryl Murray Powell. So coming up on August 3rd, we have our Cannabis Cafe. August 12th, we have our happy hour. And August, I believe, 16th or 17th, we have international expert, IP expert, intellectual property expert, Keisha Dixon, who will be talking about how to protect your cannabis brand and your cannabis business. So definitely check out Cannabisiac.com to learn about the organization, as well as to become a member and to sign up for our upcoming event. So those are my announcements. And more importantly, August 18th, get out and vote. You should have all received, if you requested your vote by mail ballot, you should have all received it, whether you're Miami, Palm Beach, or Broward County. You should have received it. If you have not received it, it's not too late to request your vote by mail ballot to get out and vote. You can mail it in, make sure you put a signature on it properly, or you can drop it off the day of elections And also, when you register for your vote by mail ballot, you should also check off to get your ballot for November for vote by mail as well. So August 18th, very important election. And then, of course, November 3rd, the next very important election. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Mayor Messam, my big brother. Thank you for joining me today.
All right. It was fun.
Thank you. It was fun. Everybody, please share this video far and wide. Lots of information that we unloaded here today about your health, your wealth, our community, elections, and so much more. So please share this video and make sure you tune in with me next Friday. I will have my former business partner and friend, Sophia Nelson, joining me to give us an update on all things happening in the community, because you know she is also another community guru. So please tune in with us next week for that session. Thank you so much, Wayne.
All right. Take care and God bless everybody.
Thanks. Have a good one. All right.